Okay, good evening, and welcome. Thank you everybody for joining. If you have not done so already, please make sure you are on mute. My name is Erica Logan, and on behalf of the Eastern Panhandle Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, I want to say welcome to our annual Scholarship 101 webinar. Thank you so much for joining. We're happy you could be with us, and I think you will find this information very valuable. Our speakers for this evening will be Carolyn Togans, Velma Green, and then Carla Hunter will do a wrap up for us. Again, please remain on mute. You can put your questions in the chat, and we'll make sure to pick those up. Also, at the end, there will be an evaluation, and we'll put that link to the evaluation in the chat. And we will also put some resources in the chat. So throughout the webinar, we will talk about some resources that are available to you, and you can find links to those and more information about those resources in the chat. So again, I say welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and move to the slides, and our first speaker will begin.
Today, we will cover what is a scholarship, where to look for scholarships, getting started, 7 scholarship application components, and tips. And then we will finish up. About scholarships. What is a scholarship? A scholarship is money for school that students are not expected to repay. What is the financial reward of receiving a scholarship? The reward can range from paying for books, tuition, a computer, to room and board. What are scholarships based on? Some scholarships are based on merit and achievement. I have read about some unusual scholarships based on characteristics and qualities. There is one offered at Harvard University for students with the same last name of Downer and Hudson. There are height scholarships offered by the Little People of America and Tall People's International. There is a Stuck at the Prom scholarship offered to students who have made a prom dress out of duct tape. There are scholarships for twins and a scholarship for hair color called a scholarship for red hair. Other more familiar scholarships may be related to career choices, such as the health sciences, medicine, nursing, physical therapy, the social sciences, sociology, psychology, education, music, law, criminal justice, business, to name a few. Then there are general scholarships offered by local organizations such as your sororities, fraternities, Masonic lodges, churches, banks, school alumni associations, civic organizations, and places of employment. Next slide, please. Where to look. Check with your school counselor for a scholarship booklet, or look on your school's website for information. You can also research private scholarship sources that you see on the screen here. Research foundations, businesses, charitable organizations. Check with parents, employment companies. A local site to view is the EWVCF site. And I'll repeat that again, the EWVCF site, which stands for the Eastern West Virginia Community Foundation. Eastern West Virginia Community Foundation. You can find their scholarship information at www.ewvcf.org. www.ewvcf.org. If that information is not available yet, just keep checking. That application will ask you to complete a series of questions instead of submitting an essay. One interesting fact is that you can complete one scholarship application and apply for as many as 7 scholarships at one time. Now, the due date for that application process is February 28th. I'm going to share a little information about the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. Free application for federal student aid. And later, more details will be shared by Carla Hunter on this topic. Everyone should complete FAFSA no matter your parents' income, unless your parents earn more than $350,000 a year and have net assets of more than $1 million. Fill your FAFSA online at www.fafsa.ed.gov. FAFSA is the gateway to student financial aid. It can determine eligibility for need-based aid, grants, and low-interest loans. File now, as many grant and loan programs have a limited amount of funding. The priority deadline for West Virginia is March 1st. And you can use last year's income tax information, that is year 2019. Also, the EWVCF Scholarship Foundation requires applicants to submit the FAFSA information with that scholarship process. And you need to include that in the scholarship packet. And one caution thing I want you to be aware of is when you are applying and managing the scholarship search, don't pay to get money. If someone or a company is asking for money to help you manage the scholarship research search process, most likely it is a scam. Next slide. Getting started. Build a relationship with your school counselor. Read the entire scholarship application and make sure that you're actually eligible. Read and follow all instructions on the application carefully. Take notice of deadlines and be sure to plan accordingly. Don't waste time on those scholarships you are not eligible to receive. However, if a scholarship says priority given to, apply for it, because you might just get selected by a process of elimination. If the application says don't fold, then use a manila envelope for mailing. If it states 500 words or less, do so. Judges and evaluators are looking to see if you qualify, your application is presented well, neat, and error-free, that all required documents are included, and that you answered all the questions. Use a checklist for each scholarship application. Next. There are 7 scholarship application components that we will go over tonight. Information form, essay, resume, financial needs statement, transcript, letter of recommendation. And keep in mind that most scholarship packets require you to submit an acceptance letter. Be careful in using an acceptance letter that notes the institution is offering you a large amount of money. Judges and evaluators review many scholarships, and they must find a way to weed out and narrow the selection. Including an acceptance letter stating a large amount of money may give the appearance that your need is not as great as another applicant. So select a different acceptance letter, even if you don't plan to attend that institution. So let's get started on these components and discuss tips for satisfying each of these requirements. Next. Information form. That will fill out, the information form that you fill out will ask for possibly background information, solicits basic personal and academic information, includes current grade point average and post-secondary plans, may also include questions about your family, extracurricular activities, and accomplishments. Not all applications have an information sheet, but if the packet does have one, you are expected to complete it. Information form tips. Again, follow directions, complete the entire form. Looks are everything. And always type or use black ink. I had this applicant last year that filled out an application and used red ink, and not only used red ink, but also crossed out misspelled word and then spelled it correctly with the red ink. That is really a turnoff for evaluators who are looking at scholarships when they're trying to find a way to throw one to the side. So be very careful. Use black ink. If you include your GPA, make sure it matches what's on your transcript. Make a copy just in case. As I stated before, read the entire scholarship application, make sure you're eligible. Many times scholarships are meant for a specific population. Follow directions carefully. Don't leave any space blank. Write not applicable where appropriate. Check for typos and grammatical errors on your rough draft. Ask a friend or relative to proofread it. Transfer the information to the original application. Sloppy writing and inaccuracies can hurt your chance of receiving a scholarship. And if possible, if you can, if possible, it's a good idea to just type the application online. Detail your academic achievements when asked. Draw attention to your GPA and any academic honors, other scholarly accomplishments. Don't exaggerate your grades, skills, or qualification. Be honest. You can list your hobbies, volunteer work, relevant successes on your application, such as if you volunteered at a medical center or nursing home, or if you volunteered at the Boys and Girls Club, or if you volunteered in an elementary school reading to young students. Get the packet to your school counselor on time, because remember, your school counselor is very busy. So you need to get that application to that person on time. When mailing your application packet in state, mail early, or if close to the deadline, get the post office to date stamp it. If mailing your application out of state, send a certified mail, return receipt, or with delivery confirmation. Now there's a difference between received by and postmarked by. Received by means the scholarship packet must be in the hands of the provider by the due date given on the application. Postmarked by means the scholarship packet must be date stamped before or on the due date given on the application. That's why you want to make sure your application is date stamped by the post office postmaster. Sometimes applications take longer to arrive. And I hear here in Jefferson County that the mail goes to Baltimore and then comes back to West Virginia. And I'm not sure, but that's what I heard. And so you want to make sure that that scholarship gets to the scholarship provider, and the scholarship provider will still accept your scholarship application. And it will probably still accept your scholarship application a few days after the deadline, as long as it is postmarked on time. Essay, next slide. What makes a good essay? It's original. It states clearly why you deserve to win the scholarship. It avoids meaningless information. It's inspirational and positive in tone, and it's honest. Your personal essay is critical to winning a scholarship because it lets the selection committee get to know you beyond grades and test score listed on your scholarship application. Many committees and evaluators are looking for well-rounded students who can not only show their excellence in academics, but also in athletics, extracurricular activities, and community service. Make sure you give yourself plenty of time to write a compelling scholarship essay that conveys your background, your experiences, your ambitions, and your personality. It's your opportunity to make a strong and lasting impression. Remember, others have an outstanding GPA just like yours. So make sure that your essay It leaves a lasting impression. And follow essay length. Evaluators do not want to read a 3 or 4 page essay with meaningless information, especially when they are reviewing 40 or 50 applications. Next slide. Essay tips. First of all, the scholarship essay is your opportunity again to show evaluators what sets you apart from other applications. When they look at these applications, if they're looking at 30 or 40 at a time, they're trying to get a mental picture of the applicant. And that applicant needs to stand out differently than other applicants who are also applying for that scholarship. Your responses to essay questions help scholarship providers understand what you're motivated by and where your interests lie. That's why it's important to start writing your essay as early as possible and to take an organized approach to what you are going to include. Make an outline to organize your thoughts. Pay attention to creating a strong introduction, supporting arguments, and appropriate conclusion. Every story has, including yours, should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. If you include your GPA, again, make sure it matches what's on your transcript. Many times when evaluators are looking at their essays and they look at the transcript and they say, said they had a 3.8 on the essay. When they look at the transcript, it's a 3.2. So be careful. Make sure that your GPA matches whatever you put in your essay also matches what's on your transcript. Ask others for feedback, but don't ask them to write it. Proofread the final version. Wait 24 hours. Proofread it again before including it in your scholarship packet. And also, when you do write your essay, one other thing I would like to say is that at the end of your essay, you might want to say something about, thank you so much for considering me for this scholarship, and then say how you're going to use it. Because everybody feels that they deserve the scholarship. A good word to use at the end of your essay is, thank you for considering me for it, because everybody feels they deserve the scholarship. Next slide. Getting started with your resume. Write a list of every activity, achievement, and skill you have. Use this to fill in the sections of your resume. Sometimes you may feel that something you've done maybe one time or something isn't that important. But if you've even done it one time or twice, it may be important enough for you to put on your resume. I had a student one time who shoveled snow for elderly during the winter months and didn't charge the elderly people in his community. So that was something he put it in his resume because he was showing that he was giving back to his community. Ask your parents and peers to help you remember the achievements that could be included on your resume. Your resume should include information that highlights your strengths. I had a student one year that put in the resume how they donated 500 books to the library. And I thought, well, that made that student stand out differently from another student. Student who went into the Boys and Girls Club and taught sign language. So if you got anything at all that makes that you can highlight, on your resume even, then that makes you stand out, as I said, for the essay too, you need to include that. Next slide. Now, this is just one example of a resume for scholarship applications. And you may have one that you've started or you've already done that you feel meets your needs better. But this is just one example. So I'm going to share some tips for creating your resume. Center your name, phone number, and email address at the top of the page. If your email address is offbeat, like PokemonMan.server@server.com, BigDog@Comcast.net, cutiepie@server.com, consider getting a new professional sounding address with your first name and your last name. When evaluators look at that, they're going to get a mental picture of maybe something else that you don't want. Review your social media profiles. And I'm going to repeat that again. Review your social media profiles and remove any inappropriate and immature materials. Divide your resume into 4 sections with bold headings. You have academic experience, extracurricular activities, work experience, awards, and honors. Almost everything that you've done should fall into these 4 categories. Adjust the names of the headings as desired to show your personality and to highlight your experiences. Leave spaces between sections to visually break up the resume. Incorporate action verbs in your resume. For instance, I'm thinking is when you do like extracurricular activities, you could say volunteered at the Boys and Girls Club. You put the year beside it. You may say worked at the VA Medical Center, transporting veterans from one area in the hospital to another. And you could put the year beside it that you did that. So those are just action words. So you just don't want to put something that said extracurricular activities, Boys and Girls Club. We don't know what that means. You need to have an action word in front of it to let us know what you did. List your academic sections, experience section at the top of your resume. Since most scholarships require you to have a certain GPA, you can include that, your weighted or unweighted GPA, any advanced placement or honor classes you have taken, and any majors or minors. Include your expected date of high school graduation. And you could just put the month and the year. You don't have to put the exact date. Follow up your academic experience with any extracurricular activities and target those activities specifically for your scholarship. For example, if the scholarship emphasizes community service, list your volunteer hours. If you know that scholarship is saying is going to be geared to someone who has volunteered, you need to make sure that you list your volunteer hours and dates at the top of your extracurricular activities section. Each activity should begin on a new line. Use bullet lists to highlight your responsibilities and achievements, particularly focusing on duties related to the scholarship requirement. And again, as I said, use action words to convey your qualifications and experience. List your work experience in the 3rd section. Even if you just had a summer job at the local supermarket, you should mention it. Scholarship directors do not expect every applicant to do amazing internships, but they do expect you to have spent your time doing something productive. Work experience shows you were able to manage your time between your academics and a job and your social life. Skills you gained in your job may also relate to qualifications for your scholarship. So you list your awards and honors in the awards and honors section, in the last section. Examples are National Honor Society, I think there's a National Spanish Honor Society, debate club, football, tennis. Put the years beside those. Proofread the resume. Let it stand for a few days. Proofread it again. Cut out extra words that don't get right to the point. Ask your English teacher, guidance counselor, or parent to proofread the resume for you. Typos or grammatical errors on the resume hurt your chances of being selected. And at this time, I am going to ask Velma Green to continue the presentation and share more pertinent information.
A financial needs statement. A financial needs statement provides insight into a scholarship applicants and family needs for financial assistance. Now, some scholarships place significant weight on financial need in selecting recipients. One thing I want you to know is that there are real people that select you or select a scholarship recipient. They're not computers. We all have hearts, we all have souls, we have conscience. So that's what you're tugging on. Next one, please. Okay. First of all, you're going to be sure to include your family size and your hardships. Hardships can include health issues, deaths, medical bills, loss of employment or loss of hours, loss of housing, and a change in guardianship, and COVID stories. We will be hearing a lot of COVID stories going on this year. I'd like to tell you about a young lady her name is Chelsea Fierce. That should tell you right now her name like Fierce. Well, she graduated a couple years ago in Atlanta, and she was the valedictorian of her class. She had a 4.6 average. She got a full scholarship. So she gave her graduation speech because she was a valedictorian. She talked about how, she said, did you notice I never went to anybody's house in here because I didn't have a house for you to go to. I've been homeless for 10 years. Her mother and her siblings were all homeless. They lived in cars or in shelters, and she was able to sustain a 4.6 average. Well, Yale University heard about this, and they heard about her story. So after she finished her 4-year degree, she wanted to go to medical school. They gave her a full ride scholarship for medical school because of this. And they thought that if she can survive all this, if she can still maintain an average of 4.6 being homeless, she can survive at Yale. And they gave her a full ride to medical school. So if you have some hard luck stories or hardship stories, please share them. Now, number 2, include any information about other siblings or family members that are currently in college. I like to talk about my sister. My sister is currently a judge, and her husband is a lawyer. So you're saying, okay, and they had a daughter to go away to college. Well, doesn't sound too bad. She should be able to afford that. But right behind her came a set of twins to go to college. So my sister had 3 kids in 3 different colleges away from home. You can see how the need got greater and greater and greater with each child. So include this. Be sure to mention if you live in a single family parent or 1-parent household, and if you have the first in your family to go to college. Do not discuss any financial planning that your family has done. We're going to use the military approach in this. If they don't ask, you don't tell. So if your parents have set aside some money for you, they don't need to know that. If your parents had a piggy bank and they've been saving for since you were born, they don't need to know that. Now you may laugh at a piggy bank. What can pennies do? I would like to talk about a young lady named Faith Hammett, and she was a special needs adult. Well, her friend had a child and named her as the godmother. She was very proud of that, and she wanted to do some kind of help. So she decided to collect pennies, and that's all she did. Anywhere she went, she picked up a penny. Every day she would put her pennies in a jar. When that girl graduated from high school, she was able to give her 500,000 pennies. That equals to $5,000. So never laugh at a penny again. Next. Transcripts. Most scholarships require a high school transcript. Some may ask for a sealed transcript, and this means it must be submitted in a school envelope and sealed. Some scholarships will ask for discipline and attendance records, which often are included with the transcript. Now, I am with the belief, and I think a lot of other people are too. I serve on many scholarship boards, and you get a lot of them. You all look good on paper. You got good grades, you got good recommendation letters, your community service. So what I try to do is I try to eliminate some to find the candidate that will fit that I want to select for that scholarship. Your transcripts Always make copies of your transcript. So you don't have to pay, but not only not pay, but think about this. Remember in West Virginia where they had a work stoppage and the school was stopped and you were unable to go up and get your transcripts? You may have snow where schools are closed, and with COVID, we don't know. So when you get a copy of your transcripts, make that copy, because sometimes some scholarships, they don't require a sealed one. They just want one from you. So
Next slide for you, Thelma.
I'm sorry, next slide, excuse me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Now, some may require, I'm sorry, so be aware of what's in your transcript and your records include. Some may include your discipline and your attendance records back from middle school. Now, we know that when you were in middle school, your behavior was middle school-ish. And you might have taken out that cell phone one too many times, or you might have missed a couple of days in there. So make sure that if they don't ask for your attendance or your discipline record, that the school does not send it. I'm on a scholarship out of West Virginia, and we don't ask for that. But sometimes it's included. The students is included in their ACT scores or in their transcripts. Do I look at it? Yeah. Most people will look. I'll peep at it to see how you were. Now, some may include the standardized test scores, the ACT and the SAT. Timing might be such that your transcript will only include the first semester of senior year, but you must still strive to do well in second semester as it impacts your GPA. A lot of seniors get this thing called senioritis, where we stop. Hey, we got into our school, we got our money, we good. But you can't have that attitude, and I'll tell you why. I'd like to tell you about a lady named Monica Soto Granada, and she worked at the State University of Osceola. That's a college in New York. She was an admissions counselor. Well, it was a young lady, and the young lady had between an 85 and a 90% grade point average out of 100%. She had a very high SAT and a very high ACT score, and she was taking AP Science and AP History, US History. So she was given a scholarship, and she was admitted to the college. Well, that second semester, the colleges still get your grades, and they got her grades, and her average, and they get them around July, August. Well, guess what? Her grades went down to a 76. So the counselor called her to see what happened. Maybe something traumatic happened in the household, and she talked to her. And the young lady said, "Oh, I broke up with my boyfriend, and I lost my job at the mall." So she went back to her colleagues and she told them what happened. And they said, "Well, you know, we can't take her. We're not gonna give her a scholarship. You must call her and tell her we're gonna rescind her admittance." And they called her to let her know that she can no longer attend. They're taking it back, the scholarship, and they're rescinding their admissions letter to her. About a week later, her father called, and the counselor talks about how she heard it in his voice. And he was saying, "Is there anything that we can do?" Now, while she was talking to him, she could hear the girl in the background, "Oh, my life is ruined. I'm never going to college. Oh." And her mother was going, I told you so. I told you so. I told you so. So the counselor suggested that the daughter enroll in a community college, in her local community college, take a full load in some heavy classes and make good grades. And then after a year, apply again. He said, "Well, unfortunately, our community college, they've already taken the applications too late. They're not taking." He said, "Well, find a nearby one." Well, about a year later, he received a call from the father. And he said, "I just want to thank you for that advice." She was able to get into a community college and take some courses. She made good grades. She's applied for a college and she's off to college. But more importantly, she learned a very valuable lesson. And that was the most of the takeaway from that. So you're not gonna, please don't get that senioritis and you're thinking you're smooth sailing and you're finished. Next. Letters of recommendation. Letters of recommendations give insight into your personal, your professional, and your academic abilities. Letters of recommendation can be from a teacher, a coach, a counselor, a community leader, an employer, or a church leader. Next. I was a high school math teacher, a retired high school math teacher, so I was asked to write quite a few recommendation letters. Unfortunately, I only see you 1 hour a day and that 5 days a week, and that's how much I know about you. So it's best that you give the person that you're asking to write a letter a profile sheet. They want to know what you do when you're outside of my stat class period too. So be sure in your profile sheet, you're going to include your school activities, your experiences, your community activities, your college major, your academic goals, your personal qualities, and GPA. And then I think you will get a better letter from the person you're asking to write the letter. Do not ask your relatives, especially people with your same name. You know auntie's gonna write you a good letter. So please don't do that. We want to keep the letter to 1 page. We don't have to write a dissertation about you. 1 page is enough. And do not have it written to a specific college or to a specific scholarship. Have it general so you can use it over and over again. Now, make sure the person likes you. I've had some people ask me to write a letter, and I'm saying, was I the best person they could think of? Give them enough time. I've had people to give me the profile sheet on Friday, and they want their letter on Monday. Oh, I'm sorry, I have a weekend too. I have a life too. So give them enough time. You may want to give them a stamp address envelope. So when they finish, they won't have to go out and find a stamp, find an envelope. Sometimes the letter has to go back to you to include in your packet, but sometimes they want to go right to the person.
Next slide.
No, just a moment. I'm still.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Also, if you volunteer one summer, maybe you're a freshman, sophomore year, you volunteered and you went to the library, you shelved books and you read stories to them. When it's finished at the end of the summer, get them to write a recommendation from you, a letter from you then. Because when you are a senior and you go back 2 years, 3 years, that person may not be working there. That person might be like me, oh, and forget, honey, what did you do? Who were you? So get your letters and file those letters and keep them so you can use them for future reference. Ask them to do letterhead. And lastly, but most importantly, thank the person because they're taking time out of their schedule, out of their life to write your letter. So thank them afterwards. Okay, next, please. Interviews. Interviews can make some people nervous, but careful preparation can help you break through that nervousness and present yourself calmly and with confidence. Next slide. Number 1, you need to be familiar with the organization that's giving the scholarship. Know who's giving you what. With this day and time, you have a computer, you can Google the organization because you never know. In an interview, they may ask something. If you say something about the organization, they may be impressed. Okay, you've done your homework. You want to practice. You're going to practice your verbal skills, but you also need to practice your nonverbal skills. Okay, your hands and your eye contact. Now, with COVID going on, a lot of interviews are not face-to-face interviews are not being held, but sometimes it's a Zoom like this. So you still have to also practice with the interviews. Pick an outfit to wear, like you would wear to a job interview. One thing I say, especially for ladies, you may want to sit down in your dress. I had a young lady and she had a nice dress on. It was kind of short. And when she sat down, it was very short. And she spent most of the time trying to pull it down the whole interview. Be on time. They're going to be there. They're waiting on you. And we know in West Virginia, we have the trains, we have the traffic, we have the detours, we have GPS that messes us all up and get us lost. So be on time. You may want to do a drive-by the day before to find out where it is. I've done that. Also, if it's a building, you may want to know the location in that building. Maybe a building has 6 different doors. You don't know where it is, what floor. That's okay to find out before time. If you do have a face-to-face, we hopefully soon we will have them. You're going to shake hands when you arrive and have good eye contact. Look at the person that's interviewing or the people that are interviewing you in the eye. Now, during the interview, don't rush your answers, okay? You're going to answer every question thoroughly and slow it down. It's your pace. Think of the interview like a conversation, not that they're interrogating you. Stop talking when you made your point. Don't ramble. And one way to do this is read the people in the room. Look at them. Look at are they smiling? And that, now they're supposed to have a stoic face, but sometimes it's hard, I'll be honest with you. And you may see their eyes twinkle and they're nodding their head. But when you look around and you see dead silence, it goes from the smile to not, and more than one person. You have talked beyond the question. So don't ramble, stop. Honesty is the best policy. It's easy to remember the truth. It's hard to remember a lie. So just be honest and tell the truth. Just be you. And thank the panel for its time when you exit. Next, please. Finishing up your application. You have to make sure your application is clean and neat and error-free. Now, we know that you have these computers, and granted it has a spell check, but we know spell check can mess up because there are more than, you can say, you can write a word, the same word can be written 2 different or 3 different ways. So make sure it's error-free. Make sure your application is complete. I sit on some boards, and what we do before we get the application, there's a group of people and they go through the application to make sure everything is complete. So if you missed a signature, if you missed a letter, they don't even give it to us. That saves us time. You're out. And we've had some dynamic applications, but they forgot. I know one application, we asked for the counselor to sign it. And I don't know if the timing was wrong. They didn't see that. A lot of people forgot that. Now, when they had the teacher work stoppage, they couldn't get the counselors to sign their papers. So make sure your timing for your application. You give enough time for everything. Have someone else to review the application because they can see things you can't see. Make a copy just in case something happens, and you're going to mail the application to the right place with adequate postage. Now, because if your application has a couple papers in it, maybe a little heavier than a normal stamp. So if it's a 3 cent, they're not going to pay 3 cents for it. They're going to send it right back, and then your application may not get there on time. Make sure it gets to the right place. Pay attention, and I think Carolyn talked about it earlier. If it says it has to be there on a certain date, you have to give it time. We know the mail has been slow. You're saying, Maryland, if I mail a letter to the person next door, it's going to Pennsylvania first and then comes here. So you have to allow for that. If it says it has to be hand marked or postmark, take the time, go in that post office and have them to hand stamp it. They can hand stamp it in front of you that has the correct date on it. Now, I'm going to add some more things that we need to look at. Social media. We know 2020 has been a very trying year. A lot of you all have been very passionate about your convictions, but sometimes we can't always display your emotions and your feelings and your beliefs on social media. And I'll tell you 3 stories. When I researched this, I found many stories, but I'll just tell you 3. It was a star athlete. His name is Nate Panza. He's 18 years old, and this was this year. He had a full athletic scholarship to attend Cornell University. He was going to play football at Cornell. Well, he did a Snapchat video, and he used some racial slurs. And somebody was videotaping it, and he knew that. He even on the video he's saying, "Oh wait, you can't put that up. You can't put that up." Well, somebody recorded it, put it on Twitter, and within 24 hours, he had lost his football scholarship to Cornell. It didn't stop there. The students at Cornell started an online petition. Over 400 signatures in a day they got. So not only did he lose his football scholarship, he also lost his admittance. They rescinded his admittance to Cornell. It didn't stop there. The person that recorded it, who was edging him on, he lost his admittance to his college. He was going down the road to University of Richmond. He lost that too. So you see that one action, the consequences. There was a young lady that was going to play lacrosse, and she had a full athletic scholarship to Marquette. They revoked her because she, on Stats Chat, she made a post marking the death of George Floyd. She lost her scholarship. She's no longer going to Marquette. And then there was an honor student. And she made on her Instagram, she said she was racist. She said, I try not to be, but I know I am. I am racist. And she talked about the people behind her. They were sitting behind her. Her name was Liberty. But of course, University of Florida found out, and she's no longer going to University of Florida. So they can go back. Now, most of the literature I read, they don't go looking to see what's in your Instagrams and your social media, but people will bring it to their attention. And they even had a star, Sky Jackson, I think she's a Disney star. She brought it to their attention about the young lady from Florida. She brought it to their attention. So they will find, people will let them know. You gotta understand, this is a business. People want the scholarships, they want to be admitted to these colleges. If they don't get it, they're a little salty. They may say, listen, this is what we have. And you may say, well, you may want to go back to freedom of speech. But if your beliefs are not aligned of the college's philosophy and their beliefs, they cannot admit you or stop your scholarship. So be careful. If you have something on, if you can clean it up, you may want to clean it up before you start submitting applications for scholarship. Lastly, I want to tell you, you need to put a thank you for your scholarship. Now some colleges, and I'll talk about St. John, we all heard of St. John in New York. If you receive a scholarship from the college, you have to write a thank you note to the donor. If you don't, some colleges are withholding your money. They will send you emails, reminders. They'll say, come by the office, we'll help you one by one. And this is the way they look at it. When a person who donated money, they're benefactors or they're donors, so they give money, when they see this letter coming and it's a very heartfelt letter saying, I'm in college, my parents never went, and I made this average, and I'm doing this, and it tugs on them. They've had donors that have already contributed. They go, when they read this letter, they come back and give more money because they know that their money is not being wasted. It's going to a good use. So you're kind of like, I guess for future people, you're trying to pay for the future for other people to get scholarships. So some colleges, and I read quite a few of them, they're saying you don't give that thank you note, you're not going to get your money. So if you get a scholarship, please thank the applicant. It's not to say you're going to get anything get anything back, but thank them. Whether it's a letter, you wait till your first year, you talk about your college experience, what your grade point average is, do that. Next. 5 lessons to learn. Be passionate. And you can tell when we read your application, we can tell how passionate, especially your essay, how passionate you are. Okay. Persevere. It's a process. But once you do 1 or 2 applications, believe me, the others will all fall in line because they're asking a lot the same thing to do over and over. Overcome your fear and doubts. Okay. Stand up for your beliefs. But we're going to stand kind of quiet. Find strength in numbers. I like to tell 2 brief stories before I turn this over. Oh, I'm sorry. Here's a quote from Vicki Bullitt, a local past Olympic winner and local basketball star. She stated, having a goal without a plan is just a wish. I'll tell you about my stories, how I went to school and didn't have to pay. Now, I was not that B student. My mother, I used to tell my mother, C's get degrees. So I want to tell you what I did. My first, my undergrad, I had some student loans, not a lot because it's just the last 2 years. and I had some student loans. So I was teaching at the time, and I contacted them and I said, you know, I know people are not paying their they don't have to pay their student loans back. Tell me, what are they doing? And I called the loan people and they said, well, you're a teacher. I said, yes. And she says, well, if you teach at a low income school, we will, every year, we'll take so much off until your loan is paid off. I said, that's all? Oh, that's no problem. I hung that phone up. I called the school board. I said, listen, I need y'all to send me to the poorest school in the city. They said, what? I said, give me Title I, free lunch, reducer. I don't care. I need to go to the poorest school. And they did. And every year my money went down, down, down. Now, a school is a school. A child is a child. It doesn't matter to me if the child comes from this zip code or that zip code, but my money went down. I have to pay. My second thing, I got my master's degree. So let's tell you about that story. I got accepted to Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia for my master's. So I called my counselor or advisor and I was introducing myself. And I said, you know, I'm very happy to be here, but I don't have any money. I was being honest. I said, I would love to come. I don't have any money. He said, can I ask you a personal question? I said, yes. And he says, are you a minority? I said, yes. He said, oh, we have minority grants. Now, did you want to take 1 or 2 classes? And I thought to myself, I said, well, really, I want to take 3, but, and before I could put the but out, he said, oh, that's great, that's great, that's great. I said, what you mean? He said, well, I have money for part-time students and for full-time students. 3 classes for grad school is full-time. He says, I have more money in the full-time tank because I have, you know, most time teachers want to take 1 or 2 classes. He said, I have plenty of money there. So I said, really? So every year I took 3 classes until I had already tried finished. Now, when you get something good like this, you need to share it. But let me warn you, you get yours and then you share. So I made sure I got all of my education done. And then I started sharing and telling people what to do. Because sometimes when you tell them, your money goes. Now, in both instances, nobody knocked on my door. No one called me to tell me about these things. I had to seek it out. And sometimes you have to seek things out. You have to make that initial call or that initial visit. And you may not make 1 call, it may be 2 or 3. But you have to get the ball rolling in your court. Well, good luck, and I'll hand this over to Ms. Carla Hunter.
Thank you, thank you. Hello again, my name is Carla Hunter, and I am the chair of our Program Planning and Development Committee, and I am also a school counselor at Washington High School. I want to thank you for joining us for our annual Scholarship 101 workshop. And this was our first virtual workshop. Usually we're in person. So we are adjusting to this new world just like you are. I want to thank our presenters tonight, Sor Carolyn Pogans and Sor Velma Green. If you do not know, which you probably don't, is that these women have helped, they spend years and currently help students get scholarships, and they sit on scholarship committees. So they do know what they're talking about. So I hope you took notes about everything, information that they gave you. Now, I want to give a little bit of well, the evaluation one. The evaluation link is a dot form and is in the chat. And we ask for you to fill that out because what we want to do is we want to improve our workshop and our offerings to the community. Also in that chat, there are a lot of resources for you to download. There's one for writing essays. There's financial aid, which has all the in-state financial aid in it, college admission workbook. So please download those resources. The first thing I really want to talk about is the FAFSA. Let's talk about that free application for federal student aid. Now, you already heard everybody who plans to go to post-secondary education. I don't care if it's 4-year, 2-year, career technical, you need to complete the FAFSA. It is the first step for parents and students to get money to pay for college. Unless you are independently wealthy, then you need to fill out this FAFSA. Unfortunately, in the state of West Virginia, FAFSA completions are down. Across the country, FAFSA completions are down, and we know why. We know it's because we are in this pandemic. You need to complete the FAFSA now if you have not completed it. The application opened on October 1st. There is no reason for you to wait to complete it. You have everything you need to complete the FAFSA. You don't need to wait on doing your taxes. You've already done your taxes to complete this FAFSA. You're also completing the FAFSA for the 2021-2022 academic year, because that's when you will be a freshman if you are a senior. Now, there is no official due date for the FAFSA, but the priority date for the state of West Virginia is March 1st. And if you submit that FAFSA after March 1st, the money pot may become smaller. So you may not get as much funding that you would have gotten if you had filled it out before March 1st. So remember, do it now. And also, as was said in the presentation, the FAFSA may be required for some scholarship applications. So you want to go ahead and submit that. Next is the Promise Scholarship. And we know that the Promise Scholarship is the in-state scholarship for students, academic-based scholarship. Those applications are down also. I don't know why, because my philosophy is don't leave any money on the table. The worst thing anyone can say to you is, no, you did not get the scholarship. That's the worst thing that can happen. Thus, there is no reason for you not to have completed the Promise Scholarship application. You do not have to wait to take your ACT or SAT to apply. They are giving you till August 2021 to take the test. They understand that the pandemic has closed some testing locations. So you have to win. The application opened October 1st. You should be done. I am checking my students all the time. I'm going on the website to see. Not a lot of students have applied. So please, and the other reason why we know that some students have not applied is because some colleges in West Virginia, I think all of them, are allowing you to be admitted without test scores. So since you're already being admitted, some are not completing the Promise. Well, why are you going to leave money on the table? If you get the Promise Scholarship, you're probably guaranteed to get another scholarship at that institution. Please complete the Promise. The other thing is, students say, I'm going out of state. I don't need the Promise. Well, you don't know that. Don't leave the money, bank your money in case you need it. You can keep the Promise for up to a year after you are admitted. If you go into military, you can delay it. If you're going into the military, I still recommend that you complete the Promise application. I have had students that have had to come back to the state of West Virginia to go to school because of a family emergency, something has happened. Maybe they just didn't like the school they are attending, but because they didn't apply for the Promise before they left, they weren't eligible for it when they came back. So you want to make sure that you apply for it. And I always say apply for at least one in-state school. The reason why is because when you start looking at those financial aid letters, if you go to school for free in-state and you still know you have to go to graduate school afterwards where you're going to pay money, you might want to consider going in-state so you don't have any debt when you leave school, if you still have to go to graduate school. Now, some other things that we talked about, there are other programs in the state of West Virginia. There's the engineering scholarship, there's the teacher scholarship. That's what Ms. Green was talking about. Working so long, if you get this scholarship, and if you work so many years in the state of West Virginia, they pay for it. So it's a scholarship. But if you decide to leave the state of West Virginia, it goes to a loan. So, but you can get your engineering degree paid for free if you stay in West Virginia and work, your teaching degree paid for. So you want to look at all the scholarships, and all that information is in the Financial Aid 101 pamphlet that's in the chat. We also have a new scholarship in the state of West Virginia called West Virginia Invests for two-year school for community colleges under certain majors. So you can go to West Virginia, go for free for your two-year college. Now, let me give you an example. We're in this pandemic. So a lot of students who were going away to college, they're paying tuition away from college, but they're sitting at home because the college is remote. So they're paying out-of-state tuition to sit home. So if you get into that predicament next year, hopefully this is going to be all over with. We don't have to worry about it. You may want to consider delaying your admission for a year, and colleges will allow you to do that and keep all your same money, financial aid. So, because why pay out-of-state money to sit home and be on a computer when you can pay in-state money or no money at all and do the same thing and take the same classes, English 101, biology, college algebra, or whatever, the basic classes. So those are things you may need to speak about also. Now, if you have any questions, we want you to put those into the chat. But when you're thinking about your resume and we're talking about things that you may not remember, I know there are a lot of students at my high school that have certifications. They've been certified in Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, coding, Adobe. Put those things on your resume. Put those things in there. That is an award. That's an accomplishment. So make sure you write those things down. And when you are seeking a letter of recommendation, I like 2 weeks notice because I can write you a wonderful letter of recommendation. If I got 2 weeks. Now, if you give it to me and tell me you want it the next day, I'm gonna write you a letter of recommendation. It's just not gonna be as good as it would have been if you had given me the time to write it. Because as a counselor in Jefferson County, I'm required to write those letters. Your teachers, not so much. They're not required to write letters of recommendation for you. So if you give them the last minute to write a letter, they may tell you, no, I can't do it. Or maybe they have a limit of how many letters they're going to write for students a year. So you want to make sure that you do everything early, that you have a plan, that you've paid attention to due dates. I don't take anything late. I sit on a scholarship board. That's the first thing to eliminate people is that if it's late, we don't even look at it. Don't even open that packet. It's late. If it's missing something, we're not looking at that because you didn't take the time to do it. You need to read everything. And that's what we find that our students don't do. They kind of skim because y'all are into that chat, that text mode, but you have to read everything. You don't know how many scholarships that we've gotten at the Washington High School Counseling Suite that weren't supposed to come to us. They were supposed to be mailed directly to the scholarship. Then the flip side of that, we've had scholarship organizations contact us and say, we received this scholarship from so-and-so from your school, but it's not supposed to come to us. It's supposed to go to you. So your scholarship is late. No matter how you look at it, it's late. So you want to make sure you're reading those directions. The last thing I'm going to say is this is an unusual school year. We need you as school counselors, and I'm going to take it on behalf of the school counselors in the Eastern Panhandle. Please read your school emails. Please go to if you're in Schoology or Live Grades, read your messages. Go to the website. This is how your school counselors are communicating with you. This is how they're sending out scholarship opportunities. I have a Google Classroom. All my seniors aren't in my Google Classroom, but they've all been invited. And there's lots of information in there. So please make sure that you are checking your email daily and any other school accounts that you need. Remember to complete the evaluation. That's the JOT form. And I'm going to turn it back over to our president. I don't see any questions in the chat.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, first of all, to all of our presenters. And I thank all of you for coming this evening. We hope that you got something out of this presentation. Again, it is our annual Scholarship 101 webinar. Well, normally it's in person, but during these COVID times, it is a webinar. So we hope that you found it valuable just as much as we think it is. So. Thanks again, and we'll just pause one more time. If there are any questions, if you want to put that in the chat, we can take that really quickly.
I have one.
Okay.
How should we handle the lack of community service opportunities on applications? Well, hopefully you've been doing some community service throughout high school. What colleges are looking for, what scholarship applications are looking for, generally it's commitment. And what I tell students is what you're passionate about, turn that into what you volunteer, because that's what you want to do. But right now, you may not be able to go out and do some volunteering, but there may be other ways. Maybe some schools are looking for you to be able to read to virtually. So you may be able to read stories virtually. Check out to see if there maybe the senior center has something virtually that you can do. Doing that, maybe if you are a musician or something, maybe you can play for them. Be creative and think outside of the box with this. For us in our requirement for experiential learning hours, we're looking for experiences. So I tell students, do a virtual tour of someplace. We get lots of videos and things and tours of technical schools and college schools and different things. Watch a webinar on something and then let us know about that. That's the way you do that. But you're gonna have to think outside of the box if you want to volunteer and do some things. And I think reading to the elderly or to school-age children would be good. I wouldn't do anything that wasn't through some type of agency or whatever, because you still want to make sure you have those, those guidelines. There's still some guidelines when you're volunteering with younger people and everything. And also you want to make sure that you're safe also. So via a nursing home or via a school in the district. Let me see if there are any more. Let's see here.
Carla.
Okay,
There are also many places now are providing food and meals for people. And sometimes you can also go and help maybe place packages, boxes into trucks to be delivered, or help sort, and still social distance while you're doing it. So,
yeah, make sure that whatever you're doing, your parents are agreeing to.
Yes.
If you attend to a church, a synagogue, or a mosque or whatever, and they are providing any type of meal delivery or boxes or sorting things, talk to them and see if there's an opportunity for you to volunteer there. But also, again, make sure that your parents are full aware of that. Now, there was a question from, should I wait until senior year to get my letters of recommendations from my teachers? This is what I always tell my students. Think about who you want to ask to write your letter of recommendations. Because sometimes maybe a college application or a scholarship may say specifically, we need a teacher to write this. Or they may say, we want a school counselor. School counselors, they're gonna write it for you. Your teachers, you wanna ask early. You don't need them to write the letter early. I would say at the end of your junior year, when you're starting your researching, and say to your teachers, I will need a letter of recommendation for college admission next year or for scholarships. Would you be willing to write one for me, or write when school is starting? You want to make sure you have those. They don't have to write them now. You just want to make sure you want to line them up and make sure it's someone you've had a relationship with. Just because you got an A in that class doesn't mean that you had a great relationship with the teacher. Because if the teacher dreaded seeing you coming every day because you showed out in class, that's not necessarily a good person to ask to write a letter of recommendation. And I'm not going to say that necessarily a teacher would write you a bad recommendation, but people who read letters of recommendations for a living can read between the lines and know whether they're writing a letter out of obligation or if they really feel that this individual deserves this admission into this college or this scholarship. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. Okay. My daughter is looking outside the state of West Virginia for college. Do you have any ideas for scholarships out of the state because Promise does not apply for her? Again, I say still apply for Promise, but what you want to do is you want to start the colleges that she is applying to. See what scholarships are available at those institutions. A lot of times the scholarship application is due prior to the college application. So you need to have submitted your application for admissions before that. So you want to make sure and look at that. The other thing is that there are all kinds of search engines that you can go for scholarships and do research, such as FastWeb, College Board, just the internet. Ask anybody, ask your grandparents, do they belong to organizations? Do those organizations give out scholarships? Do their jobs give out scholarships? Do your parents give out scholarships? Their work environments, do your church, your synagogue, whatever. I know I'm part of the United Methodist Church, and the United Methodist Church has several scholarships on the district level. If one of them says, if your local church, so the church you belong to gives a scholarship, if you apply to one of their scholarships there, it's a matching scholarship. So they will match what you're given from your church. So you need to begin to investigate those things and see what's going on. So just keep asking. You should be researching now for those types of scholarships. There are lots of they say lots of scholarships go, people don't apply for them, but some of them are real specific, like that red hair scholarship or left-handed scholarship that you may not be eligible for. But you can start researching now. But again, still apply for the promise and apply for one in-state college. Because let me give you an example. West Virginia University, if you apply there and you get they give you scholarships and you say, well, I'm not going to go, I'm going to go out of state. But then maybe the next year you come back, you would be eligible for the same scholarship money that you had, that they had originally offered you. If you never applied and then you just go and transfer in, then you're only available for a transfer scholarship, which is significantly less money. So what you want to have is, we got to have backup plans also. So always apply to the schools you want to apply to, because you never know how much money you're going to get. But remember, if it costs, tuition is $40,000 and they give you a $20,000 scholarship, you still got to come up with $20,000 to attend. Okay, so make sure that you're looking into those things too. Let's see here. You should wait. The FAFSA is for your senior year. That's what you want to do. There are some, I think there's like a worksheet you can do or a predictor, but other things, all colleges have cost predictors on their websites. So you should be able to go on there and enter certain information, and they should be able to predict how much it's going to cost you to go to school, how much money you would get in scholarship money. I use WVU again because my nephew went there, and I was on there, looking, because he wanted to go out of state too, but looking to see how much money he would get. I knew he was going to be eligible for promise and all this, and you put that information in, and it kind of tells you about how much scholarship money you're going to get from them, because WVU scholarships are merit-based. They have some other scholarships. That's the other thing. When they say for certain majors you can get a scholarship, sometimes you have to go directly to that department to look for that scholarship. So if you know you're going to major in agriculture or engineering, go to those specific departments, especially if it's a large school, because they have different schools, the School of Medicine, the School of Engineering, the School of Liberal Arts. So you want to start going and look under those specific majors to find out where the scholarships are, because there are. And it's just good practice to write thank you notes, to write a thank you note for something that you've been given, say thank you. And to send a thank you card just for an interview. If you have a scholarship that you had to interview for, send a little thank you card, just to say thank you for the interview. Okay, let me see.
And while Carla is just checking the chat, I also put in the chat that I encourage you to follow us on both Facebook and Instagram. Facebook, we're the Eastern Panhandle Alumni Chapter, and on Instagram, we're EPAC Deltas. And we will be posting information about any of our upcoming events and webinars on those two applications, those two platforms.
Okay. Again, I know in both the counties have scholarship directories that if they're not out, they should be coming out soon this month. So make sure you're looking at those also. And again, this is a different year, so you're going to have to be more proactive maybe than you've had to do in the past when it comes to school, because things are being posted, but you're going to have to take the time to go look for those items.
Carla, I would like to share a couple of scholarships that are full scholarships and partial that I neglected to
Yes.
mention. And because again, as Carla was saying, your goal is to minimize your debt. So you want to apply for as many scholarships as you can. And so I'm going to mention the three that I'm familiar with. As Carla said, I sat on some of those scholarship boards also. The McCormick Scholarship, for anyone that is listening that is at Washington or Jefferson High School, is a full scholarship offered to seniors in Jefferson County. And but you must plan to attend an institution of higher learning in West Virginia. So as Carla was saying too, if you're planning to go out of state and you get a full scholarship in West Virginia, that's a no-brainer. You probably should become going into West Virginia. And another full scholarship is the Roy and Gwen Steele Foundation Scholarship. And that's a full scholarship that's offered in Jefferson, Berkeley County, I think some other counties too. Again, it must be used in West Virginia. But again, if you get that scholarship, parents are probably going to tell you, well, you know, this is where you need to go in West Virginia. There's a free to find scholarship in Berkeley County that is a partial scholarship, and it covers tuition at Shepherd University only. So again, look at those scholarships, look at your websites when they come up. And as Carla said, you can pick a large school, middle school, small school, but you need to at least have a West Virginia school in there somewhere. And with this COVID-19 now, with parents' jobs and uncertainties in jobs and salaries, I think you need to look at all your options.
Yes, and I would say that if we were in Virginia, pick one in-state school, even if you wanted to go outside of the state of Virginia. That's just good practice. And I'll give this example. I had a cousin. She is now graduated and in her profession, but she wanted to go to Old Dominion University. We heard about Old Dominion earlier, and so she wanted to go to Old Dominion. Now she'd been accepted, but they didn't give her a lot of money. Well, in West Virginia, she had applied to WVU, and I think that was it because she wanted to be at that time a physical therapist. She ended up being an occupational therapist. She got the McCormick Scholarship, which was a full ride. She had HISTA, which she had been in, and HISTA paid for tuition, which would allow her to delay that because she already had enough money so she could keep the HISTA money for graduate school, which she would need because she's a medical at that time. It still is. Physical therapy is a 6-year major, straight through at WVU. At Old Dominion, she had to go apply to their graduate school for physical therapy. So 4 years and then that. So she didn't want to go in state. So I also happened to be her school counselor. I had to sit her down and her father, who was actually my first cousin, and say, I would be neglectful. He was going to send her if I didn't encourage you to take that free ride to West Virginia University, and that's it. Free ride. You're going to come out debt free from this. Well, she had 2 years. I said, you would have to pay for your housing, but your tuition is still going to be paid because you're going to have HISTA, and they're going to pay for those other 2 years for that 6-year degree. And occupational therapy was 5 years, 5-year degree. So needless to say, I sweetened the pot by saying, since she's getting this, Dad, you can pay for her to have a single room and a brand new laptop, which she's going to need anyway. And so she went to WVU, came out her first year. The only thing she had to take out a small student loan. She got more money while she was there to pay for food and stuff. She got some scholarship for food. They bought her a meal plan when she was in her 4th and 5th year. She paid off her student loan the first year and was mad that they charged her $200 for paying it off early. So she has no debt. She's completely debt-free from her education. Now, your education, regardless if you're going to 2-year, because 2-year schools are expensive too. Culinary arts, a 2-year degree, those institutes are expensive also. So that's why you need to fill out this FAFSA. It's the most important thing you're ever going to invest in is your education. But let's be real. We don't want you to leave school with more debt than you have income. And that's what's happening now. Students can't live on their own, not because they're not working, not because they haven't been offered jobs, but because they cannot afford an apartment and a car note and insurance and their student loan bill. So they still live at home and they have good paying jobs. So we want you to be smart. And if you do have to take out a student loan, which most people will have to, you take out just the bare amount of money you need to pay for, to cover your expenses and not take out more than you need, because you eventually have to pay it back. So let me see. I don't see any more questions, except for if the video is going to be available. So that's all the questions that we have about scholarships and things.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Carla. Thank you everyone who responded to the questions, both in chat and verbally. So again, just thank you all for joining. And with that, we'll say have a good evening and be safe, stay well.